Hello and welcome to this Swift Xcode tutorial. My name's Cal, and in today's tutorial we're going to be pulling data from the web, decoding it from its JSON format, and then displaying it within our app. In this example project, I've decided to use Bitcoin. We're going to just be pulling some current information about what the price of one Bitcoin is in US dollars, Ethereum, and Australian dollars. But really this is just an example, and the principles applied in this video could be used for any web service. Cool, so new Xcode project, iOS app. We're going to call this Bitcoin Tracker Tutorial. Storyboard and Swift is our programming language. Firstly, we're just going to drag in a few images. So I'll leave a link in the description to these images if you'd like to use these exact ones, but I just pulled them off the web. Heading into the main storyboard now, we're going to drag in an image view onto our storyboard, select our Bitcoin image. We're going to right click and drag onto itself to give it some constraints, giving an aspect ratio as well as height. And then we're going to right click and drag from the image onto the view, giving it leading space and top space. And now we're just going to head in and modify those constraints. We're going to set align leading to 20, height equal to 70. Our aspect ratio is going to be 1:1. And next what we want to do is just drag in a label just to the right of our image. We're going to make the font size a little bigger. We're going to set horizontal spacing as well as center vertically off our image, and then just changing our leading space to 20. And then by holding down Command, I can select both the image and the label. I'm going to hit Command C and Command V to just copy and paste, and then we just need to redo the leading space as well as the top space to the above button. And we're just going to do that another 3 times. So we're going to have 4 rows of images with a label connected to it. So leading space and top space off the above button. And then we just want to go through and change all of the images. So the next one's going to be the Ethereum icon, and then we're going to have the US flag followed by the Australian flag. And then we just want to copy and paste one more label. We're going to put it in the center of our safe area and just changing it to last updated. Cool, so we can open up the assistant editor now. I'm just going to create some outlets. So the first one we're going to call BTC price, so Bitcoin price, and then we're going to right click and drag, create an outlet for our Ethereum price. Same thing for our US dollars price, and one more for our AUD price. And then we're going to right click and drag from our last updated and create an outlet. Cool, so we can close off the assistant editor now and head into our main view controller. And firstly, what we're going to do is just copy and paste in this URL string. So this is the API we're going to be pulling the data from. And you can see it's just a pretty basic URL. If you copy and paste that URL into a web browser, we get this big slab of information in JSON format. In the interest of keeping this tutorial short and simple, what I've done is I've copy and pasted all this information into a text editor. I've formatted the JSON, and then I've just deleted all of the things that aren't relevant. So for this tutorial, we only care about the price of 4 of the currencies. So what I'm going to do is copy and paste that into our viewcontroller.swift file. So we've got something to reference. We know that that's the format of our JSON. And the next step is to basically just model the current JSON data and turn it into some objects. To achieve this, we're just going to declare a struct which inherits from the class Codable. Our first struct, we're basically going to start with the innermost data. So we're going to have a struct with name, unit, value, and type. And you can see that name, unit, and type are all strings as they are nested in commas. However, value there doesn't have any commas, and it does have a decimal place. So we're going to set our value to be type float. Cool, so moving our way up the hierarchy, we can see the next values are BTC, ETH, and so on. So we're going to create another object to hold all of these different prices. We're going to name it currency. Inside our currency, let BTC equal to our price object, and then we're going to create one for ETH, USD, and AUD. And then we just need to create one more, so the top one, which is our rates, and our rates object is just going to hold all of our currencies. Cool, so now that we've modeled the data, we now need to fetch the data. So let's just create a function. I'll just call it from the view.did_load. We're going to say let URL, creating a URL from our URL string. And then we're going to say let default session equal to URL session configuration is default. And then we're going to say let our data task equal to our default session. I'm going to say data task, and we're going to select this one with URL and a completion handler. We're going to pass it in our URL as our URL, and our completion handler, we're going to give our data variable a name of data, our response a name of response, and an error, we're just going to call it error. And that error message is just saying we need to force unwrap our URL, which we're going to do. And before we continue on with our data task, we're just going to say data task resume, which will start the data task if it's not currently running. Cool, so next what we're going to do is just check to see if there were any errors. So we're going to say if error is not equal to nil, we're going to print that error and then return. And then below that, meaning that there's no error, we're going to try and initialize our JSON object inside a do try catch statement. So just saying do let JSON equal to try JSON decoder decode from our rates. So that's our rates struct from our data, which is passed in through our completion handler. And then we're just going to catch any errors, print them out if we found them, and then return as well. Cool, so assuming that that JSON object is now populated, what do we want to do? We want to set our view to have all of the different prices. So we're just going to create a function calling it set prices, which we're going to call beneath our JSON. And our set prices is going to receive a currency object. So we're just going to say self.setPrices and passing it in our JSON.rates. And then below our set prices, we're going to create another function. We're going to call it format price. Our format price function is just going to receive a price and return a string. And so we're just going to say return string format. Our string format is going to be a string and then a float to 4 decimal places. And then we're just going to pass in our price unit, which you can see here would be BTC, and then a price value, which for Ethereum's case would be 14.5. And then we're just going to say from our set prices, we're going to say self.btcprice.text is equal to self.formatPrice and giving it our currency of BTC. And then we're just going to do the same for our other 4 currencies. So just Ethereum, USD, and AUD, just passing in the correct currency. And then below that, we're going to say self last updated price, which really should just be last updated. We're going to set its text to, we're going to create another function calling it format date. So we just want to get today's date or the current date. And so we're going to say formatter is equal to date formatter, formatter.dateFormat is equal to days, months, years, hours, minutes, and seconds. And then we're going to return our formatter string from date. And now we can say format date, giving it a new date, so today's date or the exact current time. And as we're trying to access or change the view from not the main thread, we just need to add all of our statements inside this dispatch queue main async, and that's going to remove that error message. Cool, so let's build and run this now, and we can see that that's run there, and it's given us a time at 5:26. It's given us the current price of 1 Bitcoin. Cool, and then I'll quickly just show you how you can make this sort of update every so often. So I'm just going to say let timer equal to scheduled timer at time interval 10, so every 10 seconds. Our target is going to be self. Our selector is going to be an Objective-C selector, so I'm just going to type refresh data, user info is nil, and repeats is true. And then we just need to create that function, so refresh data, just calling it an Objective-C function, which returns void. And if we build and run this again, and we pay close attention to the bottom time string, it should be updating every 10 seconds. If you like this Swift and Xcode tutorial, consider liking the video. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys in the next one.